pretty pissed off at the way the world is going, right? We inherently believe there's a lot more to crypto than just speculative activity.
Did 1,000x in a couple of weeks. And that's why I say crypto is just liquid VC.
AI is like influencing the whole market structure in on itself. You build out what the consensus is in the end.
But then there's a new Ethereum. I was like, oh man, here we go again. 50K a day plus 20K a day by being the top solution or top contributor, which is insane, right? And this really caused me to delve deeper into Bittensor Tao.
Welcome to our first podcast. We're diligent degens and we work in crypto. So we inherently believe there's a lot more to crypto than just speculative activity. So today our first podcast is going to talk about one of the projects I would say we're the most bullish on. And Philip and I are going to moderate while Leo, runs through the fundamentals of this project Tao. And just before we do that, just because it's our first podcast, I think we should maybe give some sort of introduction about ourselves, right? So, do you want to go ahead? Either of you guys?
I can go ahead. Trying to keep it short. So hello everyone. I'm Leonardo. I have been in crypto since 2017, 2018. As many of us, I would say. Now a research analyst / associate investment analyst at Hodl Funds, which is one of the largest crypto assets, digital assets. I don't know what you want to call it, but yeah, digital asset funds in the Netherlands. Now for 1.5 / 2 years. Met Ayush and the other guys online. Pretty amazing, actually. We haven't met physically yet, so that's pretty amazing. And came with diligent degens as a way to really spread information for like our generation specifically. We'll get into it in a bit, but there's a lot of discussions to be had around the future of our generation, right? Regarding financials, your job, your future, financial, personal finance position. So yeah, that's why we started Diligent Degens, and yeah, I'm giving it now away to Philip and Ayush, and looking forward to many more sessions to come. Thanks.
So yeah, thanks Leo. Just a short introduction from my side as well. As you guys can see, my name is Philip. I've been in the digital assets and macro space for approximately 6 years now. Been starting investing in late 2019, early 2020-ish. And ever since that, I've been watching the industry and generally the space. Been following pretty much everything at that time. Main focus from the start on was Bitcoin primarily, and ever since that I'm following that as a sort of value asset. Currently working as a research analyst for Risk Dimensions, and yeah, as Leo already said, was quite funny how I met the guys as well. Ayush, I got introduced to via Twitter, where I posting and commenting on each other's posts, and ever since that connection was there, and very looking forward to this project and yeah, working with you guys.
Yeah, thanks, Philip. Yeah, and just to add on, yeah, it was inevitable that the three of us were going to start a podcast, right? Like guys our age, this is a typical canon event, whatever. So we thought we might as well make it productive, right? Yeah, I think Leo, you might be muted, just FYI. I think we'll at some point we'll talk about our whole investment thesis, right? But more importantly, the reason why we're focusing on Tao, why we have such conviction, is I would say it's one of the sectors that genuinely addresses real product market fit, right? And I think Leo, maybe if you want to have a point about why you found Tao interesting in the first place, but just from my perspective, it's like we've had a lot of cycles through which there's a lot of price discovery for different use cases, and a lot of it stems and boils down to just speculative trading activity. So Leo, why is it that you bought Bittensor, into our radar in the first place?
Yeah. So yeah, what you mentioned already, Ayush. I think that, and we all should agree upon the fact that crypto from the start has been mainly and at the beginning solely speculative, right? Everyone knows that. No one would have said that Bitcoin would be at 100 something K in 2010 and was all an experiment. And along the way in 2016, 2017, everything was still speculative, with a lot of promises to be held. Everything will be on chain, everything will be tokenized, there will be a token for everything, or everything will have a digital currency. But we still didn't really know where things were heading. There were a lot of buzzwords and a lot of things and promises, but there was actually nothing. And I can remember that some assets just did 1,000x in a couple of weeks by simply having promises. And that's why I say crypto is just a liquid VC. Is a liquid VC, which hence gives you the outsized returns, right? Because, well, for VC, to get into a VC, you need a certain amount of money. You need to be an informed investor. You need maybe some minimum capital amount, 100K. But with crypto, well, you can invest in a startup for like 10 euros because it's tokenized and it's a crypto. So that's why I found it interesting. And along the way, we have seen stablecoins as a product market fit, potentially internet capital markets, so tokenized financial products. But besides that, there really hasn't been a lot of major product market fit points. You could say that supply chain at some point was interesting, gaming was interesting, digital identity was interesting, but none of them really have taken off yet, right? So at some point, Bittensor Tao came along, came on my desk, and someone said, okay, let's just do more research on this. I took it over and I was really skeptic about it because, well, we're an investment fund, still working at one. And, well, 99.99999% of the assets that we're going through are just straight garbage. That's something I can agree upon and you guys can agree upon as well. So I was also skeptic about Tao, right?
Yeah.
As you should be.
As you should be, exactly.
And someone was screaming. I saw one video of a guy screaming, Bittensor is the new Bitcoin, Bittensor is the new Ethereum. I was like, oh man, here we go again. Here we go again.
Already know this story.
I was really not looking forward to it. Did some more digging, and actually Bittensor Tao has really surprised me in the projects that are building on the network. So Bittensor Tao is a network, similar to an Ethereum it could be. There are nuances, of course, but for listeners who are not familiar with Bittensor Tao, it's a network and a middleman actually network that brings together data-driven startups and companies and data engineers on the other side. And what they do, they basically give you an infrastructure, Bittensor Tao, for every kind of company to just launch a certain initiative and a certain model to be solved. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a company. It could also be an individual. Mm-hmm. But okay, I'm just saying company now. And actually everyone could help solve and contribute and improve the models that someone sends in. So if I want to work on a model, perfect. I can send it in. I can be on Bittensor Tao, and everyone that's actually able to solve the model could participate, and they can earn quite a lucrative amount by earning Tao, so Bittensor Tao, the token, as a reward. And that's what really, really interested me because, in my opinion, it has really solved or tries to solve and is now beginning to solve the issue of scarcity in human talent and how to actually incentivize everyone and global intelligence to work on the hardest challenges and data-driven models else we have. So yeah, it's a long talk, guys. Sorry about that, but that's the whole story so far.
And you have a whole presentation prepared, which we'll go through, right?
I do, yeah, in a bit, for sure.
Perfect. So guys, maybe let's drive like a line towards like the overall market structure right now as well. Since we've been posting like a couple posts on our Twitter, on our personal Twitter already, sort of like going into the whole AI layoff and also job cuts last couple of weeks and also months. And yeah, so as I said, as I've been mentioning, that's like our Twitter handle right there. We've been posting about yeah, just the last couple major layoffs, and there were quite a few actually. To be fair, as you can see, even like last month there was like 153,000 jobs were cut, like in between the sectors of tech and also in the food sector, in the warehousing sector. It's pretty much AI is like influencing the whole market structure in on itself. So if you have a look at like trading economics right now, I think it's not shared right now, but you can see like the data for yourself. It's been like a major spike since yeah, I think it's like the biggest layoff this year. I think there was only like one which was bigger in March 2025 right now. But yeah, as we said, I think AI is going to take like a huge part in that whole structure, and that's pretty much the reason why we wanted to like sort of like give you guys an maybe a potential solution to what the problem actually is right now. And yeah, that's pretty much where we want to head into right now.
Yeah, and just quickly, I mean, like, I'm curious to get both of your opinions on this. Do you think, like, quite frankly speaking, a lot of the AI solutions out there have still not sort of justified that they can sort of take over specialized labor? Maybe you have these higher knowledge based labor that AI can definitely take over, right? Like, if you have a PhD, I would argue your value is a lot lower now, right? But I mean, do you guys think companies are sort of front loading those expectations in now? Or do you think they have already found solutions online, they have already found, viable AI solutions that they can integrate into their value chain? I mean, what's your perspective on this?
Yeah, it's a lot to take in, right? Also regarding, for example, the US job information that's now coming out from private sectors is that currently there are a lot of government layoffs as well. And I've seen a lot of people around me, friends, family, talk about AI trying to actually replace humans right now, mostly in the services sectors. And they give that mainly as an argument that the job market is currently really hard to get into, especially for newer entrants. So guys like us. And while that is the case, while that is actually partially to blame for AI and the resurgence of AI, I would also say that the big factor is monetary policy. And I discussed it with Philip as well and with you, Ayush. I think a lot of us don't really take into account the effect monetary policy has had this year and last year, the start of or the end of last year, and that we're really feeling the pain of quantitative tightening that was started in 2022. And that's what I've been telling my friends as well that aren't really necessarily into economics and finance. Yes, AI for sure, but I think that everyone should be aware that we have had monetary policy that was really benefiting the job market since 2017, 2016, 2015, quite a lot. And we've been used to that because we're young and well, it's a third of our lifetime, so we're used to it. But now we've actually firsthand experienced as adults, I would say, not as teenagers anymore, the effects of quantitative tightening. And I should say that that has been a real impact. And I think companies could use it as an excuse to get rid and to just fire a lot of their workforce. While it will have an impact for sure, not denying that, I think that as the moment comes that we're having QE, especially in the services sectors, people will just find useless jobs to just find out because they're lazy to do it. So a consultancy firm will be like, oh, a government wants to add a certain efficiency program. They're gonna hire a strategic consultant like McKinsey, and McKinsey will be like, oh yeah, we just need more people because we have more projects. And that's how it's gonna be, right? So yes and no. It's AI, yes, but I think the main contributor is QT, QE, and monetary policy for now.
I have a slightly different stance on this. For me, at least in the short term, I don't think I'd agree with the monetary policy. Midterm, yes, but like in the short term, I don't know. Everything looks very loose at the moment, right? I mean, we're expecting a lot of rate cuts to be moving into Q4. I mean, like ending Q4, even Q1. I would not be surprised if risk assets start taking off from next year onwards. Which is where that whole discussion of the 4-year cycle breaking. But I do agree with you that most of our generation, which is where most of the wealth transfer is happening right now, yeah, we don't have that, at least a conscious sort of memory of what a tighter monetary policy might look like, right? But yeah, I mean, just like even like the other day we saw in general, right, like the AI capex spending, like here OpenAI had asked like the Fed to to fund like over $1 trillion on data centers and semiconductors, and right now we're having that conversation of like, okay, we're moving away from G2 but 2G, right? Like, are we like, there's going to be the American centric area and the China centric area. Right now there's that conversation happening of whether the markets will be like, will they face capital controls now? Will they have to pick a side, after the whole rare earth material, shenanigans? So maybe AI could be the facade for these companies, right? When in reality, it's just macro situations worsening, especially as geopolitical tensions worsen. Um, but yeah, I guess we can talk about this on and on. Maybe let's go back to our investment case, which is on Tao. And just before we do, before Leo, while Philip and I moderate Leo's presentation, I think it's important to go over 4 quick pillars of, why why crypto needs AI technology, or like the blockchain tech, right? And firstly, I would say there's that whole concept of identity and context that is pretty segregated when you look at the current products out there, right? Like right now, every AI interaction you have lives in some sort of corporate silo. Either use ChatGPT or use Claude. But when you transfer among them, it kind of forgets who you are, your preferences, your style, which is essentially the value of the product, right? Like me as an end user values an AI based product, assuming they have a better understanding of who I am and what tasks I want them to complete. So there's no memory across platforms, And in a traditional market sense, it's called like relationship capital, right? Certain banks can share information about clientele, right? Same way like Amazon also knows your purchase history, so they can upsell you better. But right now in AI, that context and especially that sort of moat is pretty fragmented and and like sort of top heavy with those big players, in the space. I don't know, Leo, do you have like any point about maybe what BitTensor is doing different in this context?
Yeah, so the whole premise, and I think that everyone who's in crypto knows this premise, is that in the beginning, everyone was aiming for decentralized artificial intelligence to be a more fair, open product. And while that is the case, and Bittensor Tao could be a part of that, it's actually, in my opinion, way more significant to address that Bittensor Tao could potentially have a better product market fit than all of these centralized AI companies. So from a business perspective, it could be more lucrative to launch on Bittensor Tao, especially as a startup, as a starting company, or as a company that has like an intra VC fund or intra VC arm to start new projects, could be more beneficial to launch on Bittensor Tao and combine the fact that in the beginning it's a more fairer and it could potentially be a more fair way of doing artificial intelligence and larger data sets. It's actually, from a business perspective, potentially more lucrative.
So yeah, basically, the second pillar would be essentially like the infrastructure. I think it is crucial to understand the infrastructure, because you can sort of like imagine it as like the, let's say 1950s highway boom. At that time, like the US didn't build the highways for just a single company. It was like for obviously everyone. So I think that's where it's crucial to mention that part, because the infrastructure in AI is built that everyone should participate. But right now, it's much more like a centralized version of the whole thing, which is where Bittensor Tao might be a very, very crucial part in the future of AI, and also of how AI is not going to be monopolized in a sense, and also that the just developers and the people who are like participating in the networks are not like only incentivized to work for one company and one company only. So I think the structure or infrastructure is a very, very essential part of that. And the whole decentralized part about Bittensor is one of the major reasons why it could be very, very beneficial and very valuable for the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think we had like a few other pillars we want to go through, like incentive mechanisms, etc. But quite frankly,
Oh yeah, fair.
I think the presentation,
Yeah,
like,
let's
I
do that
think right
first.
now the listener is like, okay, what the hell does Tao even do? Right? Like,
Yeah, fair,
we're talking about
fair.
the
It's like
benefits.
a whole Fugazi Fugazi, right?
Yeah,
Wolf of Wall Street, Fugazi Fugazi. Yeah.
the value proposition of Bittensor is so unique that anyone making any investment play into AI has to treat this as sort of a hedge, right? I think at certain points we'll have this discussion about like comparing Bittensor to OpenAI, right? Uh, but yeah, go for it, Leo, and I think we'll just chime in with the questions whenever required.
Exactly.
Yes. So besides the podcast, we're also going to build out research reports. As you might guess, the first one will also be about Bittensor Tao. And because, yeah, besides Bittensor Tao, you can expect also a lot of macro analysis in the future, potentially also related to equities and other products. But for now, it will be mainly about crypto. And the majority of the report is also not finished yet, so don't expect everything to be dived into right now. But if you want to know more, for sure, we're going to talk about the Tensor Tau, what Ayush and Philip mentioned already, more in the upcoming sessions. So yeah, if you want to know more about it, stay tuned, and also for the research report, which will be finished, I think, in the upcoming days. So yeah, we have discussed our background already. I think this is more part of the research report. Let's just start with, I think, Bittensor Tau's overview. No, not necessarily overview. I would just start with, I guess, immediately go with the value proposition. What we've seen so far with centralized AI, and many of us, or even my friends, mentioned to me, are we in a bubble? Is crypto, or not crypto, is AI now in a bubble? And we've seen them, like an OpenAI or a Grok or an Anthropic, really, really up their capex spending, and that it has been kind of like a vicious cycle in which Nvidia boosts the capex spending of OpenAI, and well, it causes actually a flywheel effect that all of the valuations of the AI companies are getting increased. And the question is this a sustainable model, right? Starting with compute, what happens actually right now is that an OpenAI or an Anthropic or an Oracle, Google, it's all a race to the top, kind of like what Uber did in the beginning. They wanted to be the sole provider of AI, and or they want to be the sole provider of AI. They want to be the sole player with a monopoly. So what they're doing, they're trying to outcompete through making the best models. And all of them recognize and realize, okay, well, what do we need to make a good model? You need people to train the models, so good data engineers. You need compute and data storage. So you've seen, I think, for the ones who've kept paying attention, a lot of news about data center acquisitions from a lot of companies, also from Amazon. You need compute power, so through NVIDIA. And you actually need enough time to train the models as well. And for the inference, for example. And all of those three are causing major and significant issues currently. So I've mentioned the capex already. Data center usage is going through the roof. Not even starting with electricity usage, right? Human intelligence, OpenAI, Grok, they're all battling for the same talent pool in AI engineers, software engineers, data engineers. And what is it costing? Well, they're now spending so much money, and most of them are not public companies, so we don't actually know the actual numbers of the profitability of these companies. But the main consensus right now is that none of them make profit, net profit for shareholders, none of them. And the question is this going to continue? And if it's going to continue, is this the most sustainable model to be offered for building AI models, models in general, and data-driven business models in the future? And ultimately, well, on the right bottom corner, you can see that what is it costing? The high capex and also the scarcity and human intelligence. It makes it harder and harder for startups with a really good idea to have a product and start with a product. Because why? You at first really need a good amount of computing power. You need your data models to be running accordingly. You need the correct human resource talent. So either you're a software engineer yourself, or you can forget about it. And even though if you're a talented software engineer yourself, you have the funding required, or you need the funding to be able to continue. And all of those prerequisites really cause it for AI companies to be kind of at like a glass ceiling, or for everyone who wants to enter the AI space to get to a certain point that they're at a glass ceiling because they can't grow anymore due to the before mentioned points. And this is where actually, in my opinion, decentralized AI and Bittensor Tao specifically comes into the picture. So Bittensor Tao actually tackles all of these problems from the limitation in capex to the limitation in talent, and also toward the efficiency in training your models. And well, as the slide already mentioned, starting with model improvements, what actually occurs on Bittensor Tao, which is basically a fundamental network of, well, a blockchain network similar like an Ethereum could be, or an Avalanche, or a Solana. But what they do, they allow everyone to build a certain and specific network on top of them. And that's called a subnet. And see subnets as just basically a company or a startup or an individual who wants to make a certain model, an AI-driven model or a large language model. Well, okay, you can debate upon that. Or just a data-driven model in general. And what they can do, they can, well, incentivize everyone to solve the model for them on Bittensor Tao. And why would anyone help solve the problems or the models or contribute to the models of Bittensor Tao companies building on them? Is because they get rewarded lucratively. So think about me being an AI engineer and I work for OpenAI and I earn maybe 500K to a million a year and I'm a top performer. I could maybe be incentivized through my salary and potentially through a small bit of equity. But at the same time, on Bittensor Tao, if I would be working on Bittensor Tao, I could be earning 50K daily by solving models. Everywhere, from every point in the world, I could be living in Spain, I could be living in Indonesia, I could be living in Uzbekistan, I could be solving models. And that's actually the second part. Bittensor solves actually the problem of AI startups and companies seeking talent. Because why? Talent is a real scarcity, especially in data-driven fields. And Bittensor Tao allows every model to be solved by everyone in the world, which I mentioned to you before. And they get rewarded for it lucratively.
Sorry,
And
Leo, just
here comes in,
yeah, sorry,
yeah,
just to ask a quick question.
fair, go ahead.
Yeah, so far you've said like what BitTensor Tau is, just so I can understand and like our listeners can understand. You're saying that so far this platform
Mhm.
sort of allows AI engineers to not necessarily work on what is being like told by, let's say, the centralized corporation like OpenAI, but rather what the market wants, right? Like they're
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
BitTensor is somehow like you were saying that they have like they can make a lot more money doing this, which is I think it's a foreign concept,
Yeah,
right? Like
so
you mentioned,
it's really a lot. Yeah, yeah, fair. It's a lot to take in, and that's why I didn't want to start in explaining the network and what the infrastructure is like. I really want to get to the point of what it is product market fit, right? And I'm not going to talk about how and in what way. I'm just simply going to say, regarding models, what is happening is that everyone can give a problem, or anyone everywhere in the world can put up a problem and have a question of, okay, I want to improve my model. Then everyone that wants to participate can help improve the model. And what happens is, with regarding to model improvements, every 8 hours, the best solutions get submitted, or every 12 hours or every 24 hours. Really depends on the problem that is being submitted. So the company specifically that wants to improve the models. And all the solutions get shared by the whole network. So what you get is one, a constant reiteration and contact point of improvements in which you can improve your models 24/7. Compared it to centralized AI, well, a centralized company has working hours, has employee rights. Um, of course, employee rights are there for a reason, but you get what I mean. They're limited in their innovation compared to Bittensor Tao's ability to work on models 24/7, because anyone can join, and it's not on a paycheck, it's just on a, well, freelance basis, I would say. And what does that cost? Everyone would want to have the top solution. And why would they want to have the top solution of a given day, or on a given 8 hours or 12 hours? Again, depending on the company or depending on the subnet, they get rewarded substantially. I've seen some engineers earning plus 50K a day, plus 20K a day by being the top solution or top contributor for a given day. And how do you become the top contributor and the top solution? Well, the subnet or the company that gives away the model and says, okay, help me improve the model, they decide who the top solution is depending on their scoring system. And they all score differently, right? So it could be um, you as an AI engineer helping to solve an AI coding tool like Claude Sonnet and improving that. It could be a trading algorithm helping to solve and improve a trading algorithm for a certain company. It could be helping and improving or improving um, the forecasting ability for weather. It could be all kinds of stuff. So this actually enables every startup to, one, in potential train their models way faster than every other model in centralized companies because the iteration loop is more frequent. Secondly, it's more competitive because only the top performance of a solution get rewarded. So all the engineers are actually not paid on a salary basis. In order for them to get paid, they need to be the top solution. And every period in time, and it depends on the company that wants to, well, share the top solution, because of this top solution that's being shared across all of the contributors, you need to start from scratch. So the top contributor doesn't stay the top contributor. He has to consistently evolve, which ends up being the perfect meritocracy for models to evolve. And lastly, and this is where the point I got with starting, the main problem with AI, besides human intelligence and model improvements, centralized AI needs a lot of compute power, a lot of data storage, and blockchain actually offers the potential to use every type of compute power that locks into the network. So you also have certain companies building on Bittensor Tao that aren't really solving a B2C problem, but what they're doing for all the other companies on Bittensor Tao, they're offering data storage and computing power. And how do they get the data storage and compute power? Well, they can add compute power themselves because they're a company building on Bittensor Tao. Or everyone else can add their own compute power. Let's say I have a laptop in here with a certain processor or GPU, or a company has leftover GPU power or data storage. They can add that to, well, Bittensor Tao, a certain subnet, and then everyone can benefit building on Bittensor Tao. So what you actually end up with is you're outsourcing every bottleneck that centralized AI companies are witnessing. You're outsourcing your human intelligence, you're outsourcing your compute, and what do you get in potential? Actually, better models. So, in one hand, you're being cheaper, and while at the same time being potentially putting potentially out better models, which is a total hack, right? I think we all find it a total hack that you can lower your costs, but at the same time have better models.
Hmm. May I jump in real quick, Leonardo? Since you were mentioning that centralized AIs, and we all know that obviously, are facing scaling issues, like pretty much all of them right now. Do you think Bittensor's main advantage is like the cost structure itself, or do you think like the distributed intelligence, or like a combination out of both of them? What is your like key, if you would like have to choose like one of them, or like even like a combination out of them? What is like the main point that might separate them from other projects in the space?
Fair. Are you guys able to still hear me? Is everyone able
Yeah,
to hear
all
me?
good, all good.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, good question. So I think from a scaling solution, what you might have is that, well, certain companies, like big data center companies, could also lend their compute power to Bittensor Tao. And scarcity in the end is scarcity because you're still using electricity, right? So Bittensor Tao will not solve the electricity issue. And well, is electricity an issue? It depends on what type of energy you're using, right? So yeah, that's one. Regarding the infrastructure and the um, the hardware problem, so the GPUs and the data center storage, yes, I think that's the third. I would say that human intelligence and the fact that you're able to continuously improve your models 24/7 by any AI engineer in the world, um, and being able to tap into that crowd, I think that's the core value proposition of Bittensor Tao. And I would say it's an actual add-on that you don't have to seek your own compute and your own data storage, because that's already provided by some companies building on Bittensor Tao.
Mm. No,
If that answers your question.
I think that's a very, very well put together point there, because you basically have like a company or like a structure that is like 24/7 working towards solving a specific problem in a sense, and you like bundling together all the computing power of pretty much everyone participating in the space. So I think that's like a very, very, very good approach towards it. And also,
And just to add, onto that,
Mhm.
like, so if I understood it right, you're saying their biggest attack vector, sort of penetrating market share, is the human intelligence aspect, right? Because like right now we're seeing a lot of these Bitcoin mining companies also shift towards, giving ideal processing sort of to AI, right, for AI use cases.
Mhm.
Now, whether or not that's captured by Bittensor's network, you're saying that that's not its main mode, right? Like these are all add-ons. These are all sort of supplementary revenue streams per se, or value adds to the
Indeed.
ecosystem. But rather, the main product of Bittensor is the intelligence and the reiteration
Centralized
cycle,
knowledge.
right?
Mhm.
Exactly. The reiteration, the speed of reiteration, and the ability to access global intelligence,
Mhm.
which I think is really underestimated if you think about it. Because an OpenAI and a Grok and an Oracle, a Google, without anyone really acknowledging it, or people do acknowledge it, it's still a bureaucratic system, right?
Mhm. Fair.
As potentially a very talented AI engineer who has never really got the qualifications from an Ivy League school could be a game changer in solving models. But one, he is in the incorrect region. So geographically speaking, maybe he isn't able to come to the US to work for Anthropic or work for um, an OpenAI. But at the same time, most of the time it's also due to lobbying, right? You need to know the correct people. You need to have the correct internships. They expect a lot from you, right? And Bittensor Tao says, no, we're not going to look at it. If you're willing to perform and if you're able to perform, show it and you're being rewarded for it. And this results in the perfect meritocracy where you're not being paid for a salary and say, okay, you're now part of the company. No, if you really have something as a value for a value add, you get rewarded lucratively. And I think that's the value add of the Tensor Tao, is that they allow everyone to contribute to solving models, and at the same time allowing startups, and not even startups, but also just um, large data driven companies to tap into that intelligence. And that's going to be, in my opinion, a real breakthrough in the upcoming years. Yes.
Okay, fair enough.
Any other questions in the meantime, or
No, I think
you
maybe
want
we'll
me to
go
continue?
over the questions towards the end of each slide. Just since time is getting a
Fair.
bit of a constraint, let's try to go through the slides.
Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what I mentioned to you before, and this is the proposition in a nutshell, is really trying to be the global network for facilitating and solving large data models, right? And it could be AI related, but not only AI related, because I've seen some subnets, and again, subnets is just another word for a company or an individual building on top of Bittensor Tao with a specific use case. I will just say companies instead of subnets just to get rid of the confusion. And everyone is actually incentivized by solving all of these different problem sets due to the fact that they get rewarded in Tau. So similar to like Bitcoin, in which a miner solves a problem, an algorithmic problem, and it gets rewarded into Bitcoin. Instead of Bitcoin rewards, you will earn for Bittensor Tau a Tau reward. And this, I'll come back into it, but the tokenomics and the way the ecosystem works is kind of similar to Bitcoin. So yeah, target positioning, mainly AI currently. And yeah, I'm not going to go over the potential of artificial intelligence in the upcoming decades, but it's substantial. And yeah, what is its unique selling point? Um, Optimization occurs globally and 24/7, which is unprecedented for business models to improve in that speed and with that iteration. Top solutions get rewarded lucratively. So you're only rewarding based on merit. You're not building and, you're not rewarding based on a salary. So benefit for the company and for starting companies as well. Exponential model optimization, what I already talked about. And in the end, with the 3 points that I mentioned to you before, lower barriers for entry for everyone who wants to build a model. And this is the fairness part. So besides actually having a more lucrative business model from a fundamental point of view, you actually lower the entry barrier for quite a lot of companies worldwide, globally, who want to make a good model and have a good idea, right? And so far, since the introduction of Bittensor Tao and subnets, so the introduction of Bittensor Tao occurred in 2021, but the subnets were introduced in 2023. And we've grown from 32 to 128. Bittensor Tao, in that sense, has experienced a tremendous growth rate. And well, to put a valuation on it, it's a question mark right now. I'm going to continue doing research on the valuation model and how you want to value it, the actual Tau token. But it comes down to the fact that it's actually growing faster than Bitcoin and Ethereum did in their first years. And of course, you have to take into account that the market has become more mature. So market efficiency plays a role. But still, due to the inherent fact that it's a network in networks, because you've got subnets, so the companies generating their own middleman between, well, their problem and their own engineering network of software engineers, you could potentially really see Bittensor Tao in the upcoming years between 1,500 and 3K in 2026. And why? Well, could be all kinds of reasons. And again, no financial advice. But this is really where I see, yeah, we can laugh about it, but hey, I need to say it, where I see Bittensor Tao growing in the upcoming future. And well, okay, we'll be giving away the research report in the upcoming weeks, but let me dive deeper into it. Okay, the project has been there for, well, 4 years now. Why haven't we seen already an influx in users on Bittensor Tao? And the question, or the answer to that question, is quite simple in that sense, is that in the first years of Bittensor Tao, what you have seen is that they mainly focused on their incentivization model. How can we incentivize subnets to really evolve continuously? So every company building on Bittensor Tao, how can we incentivize them to continuously evolve? Then the second part was, because, well, that's the most important part. Then the second part was, okay, to build good B2C companies, what do you need? Well, simple, you need compute and data storage. And that was the point in time around Q1 2024 and Q4 2023 that they start building out their infrastructure. So your data storage, your compute, everything you need to build a good model. And they've been doing that, well, since 2023, 2024, what I already mentioned. And only now, since around Q2 2025, you've seen a major influx in B2C companies. And in my opinion, at the same time, you've also seen a large influx in VC companies funding and giving away capital to companies building on top of Tao who have a B2C narrative. And one of them, and of which, again, no financial advice, I'm a big fan of, is Ridges AI. I can go into Ridges AI in a bit, but That's for maybe later on in the presentation. So this is mainly a reasoning why we haven't seen, as of yet, a major influx in customers for all the companies and business models that have been building on Bittensor Tao. If we go to the economics of it, and I think this is a better way to explain it. So what Bittensor Tao does, similar to Bitcoin, they fund all the companies building on Bittensor Tao. So similar to Bitcoin, which started with an issuance of 7,500 Bitcoin, Bittensor Tao also has a current emission of 7,500 Tao. And with that 7,500 Tao, which is around $2.6 million daily, they fund all the different companies, aka subnets, on the network. And well, depending on the market's expectation of the certain subnets, they get a certain mode or a certain piece of the 82% of the 7,500 Tau as a reward of the fundamental blockchain. So the layer one, Bittensor Tau. And for example, Ridges AI, which is a subnet, it is also a company. So subnet company, again, could be the same. They reward with, well, you can see it in here. They get 6.11% of the 82%. So that's approximately something in the 100 something K daily from the Bittensor Tau. And with that, they reward every AI engineer that is a top contributor and top performer in solving their problems for them. And that's around, well, currently around 50 to 60K daily. Can you imagine earning as a top AI engineer 50K daily? That is significant. And well, then begs the question, okay, but how do they determine how much percentage every subnet gets, every company gets from the 7,500 Tau? I'll get into that also in a bit after maybe you guys' questions, but I can already expect that question from you guys. Okay, how do they determine that? But yeah, that's how they do it. And this also creates a flywheel in the token of Tau. So Bittensor Tau has the same economics as Bitcoin. So it has a halving every 4 years, because the last thing what you want to have is that everyone who's earning Bittensor Tau, that they actually get rid of Bittensor Tau because they think it's going to decrease in value. Why? Because Bittensor Tau believes in the fact that hard money is hard money. And what is hard money? A finite supply, which is not available in, for example, a Solana or in an Ethereum in theory. And with that, what you have is kind of a flywheel effect, in a sense that the more successful subnets you have, the more utility it has. The more utility Bittensor generates, the higher Bitcoin Tau's price. Emissions go up because the gas of Bittensor Tau is the Tau token. This will attract the higher price in Tau, more developers, because in potential they can earn more in rewards. Because what I mentioned to you, the emission is in Tau, but if the price of Tau increases, the daily rewards increases for all the subnets as well. And due to that, you have more subnets. And in the end, that's the flywheel effect we're currently seeing and currently experiencing with Bittensor Tau only since Q2, Q3, 2025. Why? Because Bittensor Tau went through all the loopholes of innovation. What I mentioned to you before. First, you have the incentive model. So how do I actually incentivize every subnet to perform on the best way and the highest way possible? And then we had the infrastructure, and only now we're seeing an actual adoption. And I think everyone should be really paying attention to this, because the first actual companies are now proving that Bittensor Tao could be an actual product market fit. And one of them is Ridges AI. And let me see. I don't think I have something about Ridges AI in the presentation yet. No, because this is the report, so I will come to that back. I will get back to that in a bit.
Just had a
But the gist of it is that what Ridges AI does as a company, they said, okay, we want to make a competitor to Claude Sonnet or to JetGPT or to Grok AI in the AI engineering sector. So what you have is that a lot of engineers are currently using AI to make scripts and to benefit the workflow of making scripts and building out code. And what you see is that Anthropic, which is one of the more substantial and significant companies in the space, they're currently earning currently in the hundreds of millions, I would say, in revenue. The only problem is they're not profitable. And why are they not profitable? Simply because what I mentioned to you before, and that's the problem we were heading in, they're having two major bottlenecks, and that's one, compute. They're spending a lot on compute and also a lot on their human intelligence, so their employees. And what Ridges AI did, they said, okay, fair. That's one way to do it. But there's a better way. What they did through another company called Targon and Schutz, if I can remember correctly, they outsourced their compute power. So they only use on a pay-per-use basis, which is amazing. And at the same time, on the other side, human intelligence, they attracted currently around 120 different models, which are being improved on a daily basis, all by different engineers globally. And in the end, they actually made a significant breakthrough. And I don't know if you guys are aware with the SUI benchmark, but they were able to outperform in 3 months' time the models of ChatGPT, Grok AI, and Claude Sonnet, which is of Anthropic, on that benchmark in 3 months' time. And why? Because the models that Ridges AI used were being improved and trained 24/7 with all kinds of engineers building on it globally, which caused in the end a constant cycle and a flywheel of improvement. And why? Because all of those engineers wanted to have the daily rewards. And they needed to improve, as I mentioned to you before, because there is a constant, with the model improvement, there is a constant sharing of the models of the top performance. So for them to be earning more, they need to constantly evolve their models. So they can't sit still with versus a company that already has a good product. They'll be like, okay, yeah, we can kind of sit still because we already have a good product. They're not that incentivized anymore. But due to the fact that they continuously have to improve, otherwise they get nothing, Ridges AI actually had, in 3 months' time, a better model based on the SUI benchmark, than all of those centralized AI companies together with, and here comes the main part and the impressive part, with only $5 per expected user that they're currently experiencing in their beta. And to put that into perspective, currently Anthropic is assumed to have a cost basis of $1,000 per user. Think about this. You're having $1,000 cost basis per user versus $5 in cost basis per user, while at the same time in potential having a better model at the same time, which is insane, right? And this really caused me to delve deeper into Bittensor Tao, because so far I didn't really see any major B2C product being launched on Bittensor Tao. And well, I've already mentioned to you the cost of it um, due to the various phases. But Regis AI really costs me to delve deeper into the potential because now currently Regis AI is in the pre-phase of their actual product. And it's really to see how their product will evolve and how it will be trained and how it will perform. But so far, the trials and the training has been extraordinary. And this begs the question in decentralized AI, is it only a more fair product or is it actually the better product in a general view? And yeah, based on that, I'm going to close off because, well, I wanted to talk about the value proposition as well in the sense of what do we see in a price projection. I'm not done with the report yet because we really wanted to start the podcast. But I will be sharing that
Yeah.
in the report
And we had a
for
few
everyone
ideas,
once to
right?
receive it. And I think in the upcoming weeks,
Yeah.
we'll also dive deeper into it.
Yeah, I was
So
gonna
yeah, if
say,
there are any further questions,
yeah.
let me know, guys. And yeah, that's it for now.
Okay, so just to clarify, yeah, we'll be coming out with the report soon. You know, Leo has taken lead on this. He's been pretty in the trenches of the Tao ecosystem for a while. Um, but maybe just for the slightly more non-technical, audience we have, uh, there's another example, right? Like a subnet called Bitcast, right? Now, of course, in the future, Philip, Leo, and I will be going over all the different, subnets that are currently there. What are the utility and the value propositions out there? But just quickly, it's not just to do with AI, right? Like your end product doesn't have to be AI; it can be anything, right? So, for example, if I want to improve how well the legal function of a company works, right? Let's say I want to make a new legal product using AI, and me as an entrepreneur, I might not have the sort of capex, right, or capacity to run my own AI models, right? But I can use Bittensor to sort of tap into a global pool of AI engineers that were previously like sort of consolidated at these larger corporate firms, right? Sorry, Philip, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a very, very fair point, very valuable point as well there. Because as you already said, like from perspective right now, it just seems like Bittensor is only working for AI. It's working for pretty much everything out there. You just essentially need to have like a certain structure of key performance indicators you just want to like grasp upon. It's just like you build out what the consensus is in the end finally, and then you have like global distributed knowledge or like input from every developer or everyone who feels capable of providing value and providing solution to the problems that you're pretty much just like throwing out there. That's exactly like what the network and the platform is striving to do, and I think it's an absolutely incredible opportunity for everyone to participate in the network, to participate and just work for themselves as well. As Leo already said previously, I think the part of like sort of like onboarding or just giving access to people who don't have like the let's say like the CV to get
Exactly.
into Google or get into like those
Mhm.
big firms, you're pretty much like you're not able to get into that like working environment. And I think Bitensa is a very very good way of providing value to everyone and like building a platform where working hard is also compensated very good as well. So
Exactly. Yeah, again, solving the whole incentive thing. So I think
exactly.
we've gone over the 1 hour mark. This is probably going to be a multiple part series. We're going to release a report soon, but for now, thanks a lot for listening to the first, I would say pretty okay, maybe a 4 or 5 out of 10. It's okay. Anyways, thanks a lot. And we'll publish both the presentation and the long form valuation report within the coming weeks. And in the next few episodes for the investment case for Tau, you can expect us to um, to dive deeper into the use cases and utility and the subnets in the space. All right.